everybody. Welcome back to another At America TV event with me, Jasmine. I hope you all are doing great today. So for those of you joining us for the first time, At America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a digital platform so you guys can still enjoy all of our events at the comfort of your own home. So for today, we will be discussing Rhyme Across the Globe. But as usual in all of At America's events, before we begin, I'd like to share with you our social media quiz for today. So the question is, what was the first hip-hop track ever to win an Academy Award for Best Original Song? Is it A, Not Afraid, B, Without Me, C, Lose Yourself, or D, Rap God? For those of you who would like to join our social media quiz for today, you can comment on each of our social media platform that you are joining us today, and we will give a live shout out for those of you who got the answer correctly at the end of the event. And don't forget to make an Insta story and tag us at AT America to share with everybody that you guys are having a great time with us today. All right, so without further ado, I'd invite our amazing, awesome, cool speakers for today. Please go warm welcome for Laze and Farbeon.
A conversation with We're going to have a conversation with my mentor, Farbeon. He's a hip hop artist. He's a teacher. He's from New York, United States, and he taught me how to rap. He taught me how to teach other kids, and he goes all over the place, all over the globe to meet rappers from a lot of countries, and to meet students from other continents, and the interesting part is he has a major in hip hop. So the first question I want to ask is, what did you learn?
Yes.
You have a major in hip hop. What did you learn? And did you get enough sleep last night?
That's a good question. First off, terima kasih, right? Thank you very much for the introduction, Laze. It's an honor to be with you. It's a little humbling because you say that I taught you to rap, but you were already a great rapper by the time I met you. If anything, we connected in the cipher and we both got better as MCs, right? Because that's the hip hop mindset. So yes, I've got a master's in what's called hip hop re-education, which is the way I broke down looking at hip hop. But I think the best way to understand what I learned is for me to show you a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen. And this just talks a little bit about my path. Because, all right, are you getting the screen, guys? Thumbs up. Can you see it, Lace?
Yes.
All right. So I say I'm far beyond. I'm an artist. I'm an educator. I'm an agent of change. Before I even got my master's from the university, I had my own businesses, Say Word Entertainment, which is what I released my music with, touring the world as just primarily an artist, and Freestyle Mondays, the crew I represent here in New York. And that's releasing music, putting out music videos, that's touring, right? At the same time, that doesn't always pay the bills. So I was a full-time teacher. I was teaching history or teaching English language arts, teaching literature, and I worked at multiple schools, all types of different organizations. Here in New York City, there is a path for what's called a teaching artist, right? That's an artist who goes into schools and not only teaches their craft, right? Sometimes they also help teach math, teach science, teach literature, but they use their craft, right? So a kid will read a book and then I'll teach them how to write a rap about, like, from the perspective of the main character, right? And then I also did a lot of teacher trainings, right? So I'm doing that, and then I'm still going out late at night, going to shows, promoting, trying to get people to buy my music. At this time, I started doing more theater work because hip hop is bigger than just rocking on the stage, right? And it's bigger than dancing as a element. So just looking at how hip hop is theater, right? It's theater in terms of its interdisciplinary. So I'm doing all this work, and for 10 years, right? I'm doing this, and then all of a sudden I come across this project called the Bronx Berlin Connection. I was on tour in 2009, and I met a gentleman who was bringing young New York, Berlin kids in Berlin who really loved hip hop to New York. This is going to be the second time he had done it, and he wanted to know if I could help him out. So, Olad, big shout out to Olad Aiden in Berlin and the Bronx Berlin Connection. They came to New York. I hooked up workshops, I hooked up some events, and then the following year, I took a group of New Yorkers to Berlin, right? So this is where we get to your question. It's at this time where I'm in graduate school, and I thought I was just gonna like get kind of like a master's in fine arts, where it's like, all right, I'm going to write an album, or I'm going to make a theater piece. But after I saw this project, I was like, no, I want this to be my project. So youth international exchange, hip hop. And I went back to graduate school. So I'd already been in the field for 10 years. So what I studied wasn't really like I learned as much as like, what am I doing and what theory about what I'm doing is out there. So mastering, like being able to talk about this work in more academic terms, that opened the door to other international youth exchange project work. Yes Academy, which I met you through, which I'll talk about a little later with American Voices. Next Level, I just came back from Bolivia. And then, of course, doing the State Department work. And then that's opened the door for me to now go back to university and teach. So I teach a hip hop theater class at NYU Tisch. And last year I was at the New School. So lots of talking, but does that answer your question, Laze?
That's a really, really good answer, and it's very crystal clear. You've been doing a lot of things, and just a little for your info, I met Farbeon in Bangkok. It was Yes Academy. We met in Bangkok like way back, and it was a very good experience because I never met anybody from New York before, and I get to connect with a New York artist, with a New York rapper, and I want to know what hip hop is really like over there. And as you said before, Farbeon, you told us that you've been working with a lot of young people. You've been working with the youth, and you can see that the generation is swifting, or it's changing right now, because the kids or the younger generation is running the game right now. They're having their time. A lot of new up and coming rappers, but from my point of view, what I see is the kids are kind of, hip hop today is more like about the clout than the skills itself. Do you have any opinion on that?
Looks like I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera. So I'm going to make a quick adjustment.
All right. Let's wait for Farbeon, everybody.
All right, I'm back.
Right. Yeah.
So what do I think about this generation, the young generation? It's not an answer that's black and white, in that there's so many different perspectives in this generation. I think a lot of the critique is that this generation is about the money, about the braggadocio, talking about themselves, about the parties, and there's two ways to look at that. One is it real? Are they lying? Right? I could critique it all I want, right? Like, it's not real, it's fake. At the same time, we can't say it's if it hip hop has always been about the party, right? Hip hop was about young people being young, having fun, looking cool. When we talk about when hip hop was first born, they weren't like always being conscious. They were like they had a hard times were tough, so they used hip hop to have fun. Um, so I look at the young generation that may be representing some of those aspects of the culture, and I'm not mad at it. Right, I'm cool with it. Like I'm a DJ too, so part of it is as a DJ, I have to know what music gets people moving, right? And sometimes that beat's fun, the jam is fun. That's one way to look at it. The next way to look at it is, it's hip hop's not about. It's like everyone says hip. It's not where you're from. It's where you at, right? Um, yes, you may come from a certain perspective, but are you always trying to progress and grow? Okay. If there is a young person or a young artist who's rapping about, let's say, not the most conscious subjects, but they're really skilled, they have strong rhymes, they have strong technique, then they've got knowledge, right? They've
Right.
got knowledge of self, they've got knowledge of the skill. That takes time, that takes effort, right? So you have to look at it more critically. Like, man, I'm a big fan of young people. I mean, like yourself, Lays, right?
Yes.
You are of this generation. Would you say, I mean, you're of this generation. So how has, wait, let me,
You know, uh, the way I look at it, uh, you know, sometimes I feel like music, of course, like people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. And of course,
mm,
music is more about it. It's more about that these days. And I can see like rather than looking for quality, people is looking for sensations. So they don't look for something that makes sense. They look for something that makes sensations. And in some part of it, I don't like it. Like okay, like let's see, one rapper is on the come up, and the strategy for him to get people to pay attention to his music is to do something stupid on social media. And
yeah, yeah,
I don't think that's a good idea. That's how it's supposed to work. I know that marketing shouldn't be organic, and yeah, because that's really disorganic, right? But it turns out that that's what kids do these days, and I'm saying that I think all these younger generations, these new kids, these new rappers, they need to find out how to do it without being, without being reckless like that, or they have to know themselves even more.
yeah.
Because I remember when we met in Bangkok, and you told us, you told your students that there are four elements in hip hop. It's rapping, b-boying, graffiti, DJing, and the fifth element was to know yourself. I think you can be lacking of that.
Yeah, man, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think what you're talking about is there's a lot of idea as like is like let's say hip hop started in New York, so is Indonesian hip hop real, right? Is it like authentic? And it's like it is
It's
if
also
you are
correct.
just using the technique to talk about your experience, who you are, where you're from, right? Um, yeah, man, I agree with you wholeheartedly. So, Lays, how did you get into hip hop? It's like I sometimes us as Americans think, well, it's hard to for a lot of them, it's hard to believe that there's someone in Jakarta right now who's rapping. I'm like, yo, there's so many dope people in Jakarta rapping. So tell me a little bit about how you started.
So it was always like back in the days, I have older sisters and they like to watch TV, and I saw Eminem. I saw rappers like Chingy. I saw MTV clips where rappers showed up their mansions and stuff like that. And I was a kid. I saw it, and I saw that as a motivation. I saw that like, what are they doing? What is their job? What is their occupation? They can make that much of money. I was curious at that time, and I found out they were rappers. So I listen to their music. I listen to Eminem. I listen to everybody, and I learned the craft, and I fell in love with it. I watched 8 Mile. I saw people battle rapping, and I joined my first battle rap when I was 15, and from that point, I kept doing it till now.
Yeah, man. Um, at some point, you decide you're an artist,
Uh-huh.
right? You're not just a rapper. Uh, so, as an artist, what's the purpose of your art? What's your goal with your music, and what are some of the messages you'd like to talk about?
Okay, the messages I'm trying to convey is, of course, yeah, to learn more about yourself, to believe in what you do, to um, to be to embrace yourself, and of course, to most of the time I'm a storyteller, so I tell story about what's going on around here. I'm not going to blame this side or that side. I'm not going to pick side as well because I'm a storyteller. I feel like I'm a human. I'm a people. We have informations. We have things that we want to share. Sometimes our music is straightly about that. And what about you, Fabian? What was really your message? And you're going all over the world. I saw you were in Middle East,
Yeah, yes, yes. I was
and
in Iraq for the past 2 summers doing a similar program to how we met. Um, so I guess there's. I mean, what's the question exactly?
like how do you connect with them, and how do you feel when you saw them, like, oh, they know the craft, they know
Yeah.
hip hop, and they
Oh yeah, man.
express it.
Oh yeah.
And
It's amazing.
but like I know it's amazing, but some side of you, do you feel like, is this authentic? Is this really their culture, or how to mix their culture and the hip hop?
Yo, that's a very good question, and I think it's a question that for hip hoppers is really next level thinking because I've rocked so many ciphers in different parts of the world. So yes, Iraq, South Africa, Thailand, of course, well, Germany, Spain, and of course Indonesia, right? And what I will say is, it's not like I look at it and say, "Is this authentic?" I look at it, and if I'm feeling it, I'm like, "Yo, this is authentic." I'm not even worried about it being authentic because I'm on the same wavelength as the b boy or b girl in the cipher who's like rocking it, right? And it's like I'm seeing their style and their flavor and their moves. I'm like, that could be on the streets of New York, right? Um, it's interesting with MCs because the language is different, right? So I can be in a cipher and I may not understand what they're saying, but I can understand if someone's really dope and has a strong flow and a great energy and is charismatic. That translates. Um, so it's not a surprise to me that there is authentic hip hop outside of New York. If, in fact, or outside of the United States, it would be naive of me to think that that's not the case. It would be kind of what's conceited or arrogant of me to think, well, of course they don't do hip hop. But I've traveled enough to be able to see it and have it affirmed. Yeah, man. So that kind of like how we met, right? So yes, ASEAN. Let me share my screen again. All right. Um, so yes, ASEAN is the program that we did. Look at Laze's smile. He's looking at all those photos and being like, "Yo, blast from the past, man."
It was a good old days. I had a great time in Yes ASEAN, for real.
So yes, ASEAN, Yes Academy is a program by American Voices. Shout out to John Ferguson. You know, none of that this work would be possible without him. In terms of a lot of the experiences I've had and the chances to build with young artists like Laze. So Yes Academy is a flagship program of American Voices, and they take American artists in different art forms and music genres, and they bring them to different parts of the world so that the young artists there can level up, can become better can learn more about the craft. So in 2015, we had about 15 young artists from throughout Southeast Asia. And you'll see the photos on the bottom. We had artists representing Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, PNG, Cambodia, I believe. And you guys got together and collaborated,
Right,
right?
right,
We within 2 weeks we wrote, recorded, and performed a full EP, right?
right.
Amazing experience. What did that experience mean to you, Laze? Like, can you talk a little bit about w-
Yeah. It
what
means
you learned about hip hop and what you learned about yourself as an artist?
it means a lot to me, of course, and I see it as a eye-opening moment that language is language is really not a barrier in hip hop. Like Farbeon said, and I felt it because all these guys from Cambodia, from Thailand, from Philippines, anywhere else, they speak their own language that I couldn't even understand. But when I was in the cipher, I feel the energy. I know they're fire. I know they're dope, and we get connected. We exchange contacts, we exchange Instagram, social media, everything. So like I can get to learn how's hip hop over there, and of course like I made a lot of new friends, and most of these guys they have their own sound, their own artistry because environment and where you from really you can really hear it when somebody's from for example somebody's from Thailand. The flow will be different, the beat, the way they rap on the beat, because of their dialect and their accent, everything will be different and unique, and you get to learn new culture. That's very interesting. And from far beyond itself, I got new new way of seeing hip hop. A lot of theories we learned, a lot of uh, techniques, and beside of that, I'm confident enough to open my own class because I follow because I was in Yes ASEAN. And far beyond, I saw that Yes ASEAN wasn't the only organization you were in, and you have any other things. And what makes you do this? What makes you want to work with the youth? You want to go all over the globe to connect with new people and see how hip hop is in there. Is this for the love of the game, for the culture, or I know that you also make a living with hip hop, which is some people here find it difficult to do. Do you have any tips or maybe any clue on how you handle
Yeah,
the
man.
part as well?
Uh, you know, first off, in terms of hip hop and all the blessings I've had because of hip hop, I always have to take a step back and always show massive respect to the pioneers who founded the culture. We're talking about young black and Latino youth growing up in New York City during a specific period of time, and they weren't creating hip hop, they were expressing themselves. And now that culture has is $1 billion industry, and I myself have managed to make a career in it. But I always say I have made a lot of decisions in my life not to sell 100,000 records, right? And I'm not that I've said I don't want to sell 100,000 records, but there's compromise always involved in pushing more units, and that's not a bad thing. You know, if kept with the right perspective and the right hustle, you can be very successful and remain true to who you are and where you come from. But there are things in my past and who I am as a person that I wasn't able to I didn't want to compromise. So when I told my story earlier, yes, I was rapping, but I was always a teacher. I was teaching from the moment I was like 22 years old. I was in the classroom, but I was teaching mainly academic subjects. So in one, I always talk about it. During the day I was Mr. Salcedo, and at night I'm far beyond. And there's two separate people, right? You know, I'm late night rapping and then going to bed and waking up really early and teaching the young people. Eventually, I'm able to bring those two together so that I can be authentic in myself. So, in terms of teaching, I don't, it's not about, oh, I just want to give back to the youth. Let me be honest with you. I'm selfish. I'm a good teacher. It's fun, right? It pays the bills. And like my job sometimes is to build a studio and record an album. Like it's, it feeds me, right? It makes me happy. It makes me good. And yes, seeing a young person self actualize, right? Become their authentic self because they wrote a rap song and they performed it in front of people and that builds confidence. That's powerful. Real quick, so like to illustrate this, it's like some people's like often ask like, well, what do you teach? It's like, well, so part of my getting my degree and working for all these organizations was understanding that I need to own my own organization. I need to start my own business. I've worked for a lot of schools and a lot of other nonprofits, but there were things that belonged to me that I wanted to hold on to. And also sometimes back to compromise. If you want to do it the way you think it needs to be done, sometimes you have to do it yourself. It's a lot more work, but the payoff's greater. So, and when I teach, the Hip Hop Reeducation Project is that project. It's the organization that me and a collaborator of mine, Rabbi Darkside, shout out to Rabbi D, and Hired Gun, the old Say Word Entertainment crew, started this organization as a way to do some of the work we were doing for other schools in house. And in the process of doing that, we have to define what we won't teach, right? Yes, we may teach how to add compression to this track so that it's a little bit louder. Like there's this specific skill we may teach how to rap in double time speed. That's academic skill, but there's so much bigger than that. So for us, we have what are called these 6 pillars, right? So when I teach, the idea is to teach young people to rock the cipher. That has a hip hop meaning, to be good when you're freestyling in a cipher, and it has a more professional meaning. Like to rock the cipher means to be professional, to like do right by your community, right? We're all participate in a family cipher and a professional cipher. It's like be excellent in those spaces. Rep the code means to know where the history from your craft comes from and to rep that, to represent what's the rules of what you're doing. Walk your path is about. Hold up. Do I only have 5? Oh no, yeah, of course. Walk your path is about even though you may follow the rules, sometimes you have to do your own thing, right? You have to like walk your path. You have to be authentic in yourself. Carry a passport is about being open minded, and obviously for us, it's like carry a passport, travel, which is tough these days because we can't travel, or at least a lot of people can't travel. But that doesn't mean you can't have the mindset of what it means to travel. Try new foods, learn new languages, shine the light, which is to illuminate darkness and to educate, right? To use your skills to advocate for things that need change. And then finally, share the love. You do it for the love, right? So we got the academic stuff and we got that personal, emotional stuff that, we try to teach with hip hop. Laze, it's kind of off topic, but not, because I think it's hovering there. When I first met you, you were rapping primarily in English.
Yes, I was rapping.
I remember, like, I've been in a lot of scenarios where, like, I remember the first time I was on tour in 2008. I was in, I think, Strasbourg, France. And we got off stage, and these 2 guys came up to us, and they were dressed all like West Coast, like with bandanas, like all choloed out, right? And they were talking to me with it, and I was like, "Yo, where are you from?" And they're like, "We're from here." I'm like, "Whoa, wait, what's going on here?" Right? So there is this moment where MCs are rapping in English, and remember, I asked you why, and you're like, "Because you want to be successful, like you want to cross over, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you rap primarily in Bahasa, right?
Yeah.
Why the change? And what has
So
that meant to you and your career?
yeah, so the thing is, uh, as a kid, I was exposed to American culture through media, TV, and hip hop culture, of course. And I was thinking that if you want to make it, you have to do it in English. And because in Indonesia, we also call no, I mean like if you want to be successful, you better know how to speak English. So like we have that kind of quote unquote uh, myth. So I try to do it. I try to learn it. These rappers that I adore, they rap in English. I listen to Jay-Z, I listen to Nas. None of them do it in Bahasa Indonesia. And I met a lot of people from other countries as well. I was or hello, or when I went somewhere else. I went to Malaysia. I saw Too Fat, and they rap in their own language in Bahasa Malaysia, and they did it pretty good. And I went to Thailand. I met these young rappers, uh, and they rap in their own language, and that's very dope. And I was like, why can't I do it in Bahasa Indonesia? And the second reason was, uh, as I look back, there was no legendary song in Indonesia that's sang by an Indonesian that is very timeless, that's in English. It's always in Bahasa. So I guess if I want to speak to the people, if I want to speak to everybody in my hometown, I have to speak their language. I have to speak their tongue, and it's in Bahasa. So from there, I I dig deeper about Bahasa Indonesia. How can I use it in the lyrics, or maybe I still can use the American rap context or sense, but switch it up to my language, and I try to perfect it. Uh, it takes time for me to finally get comfortable with it, because
Yeah.
the challenge in rapping in Bahasa is if you chose a wrong word, your song will be cheesy all the way through. There's no turning back. So like you can make everything sounds cool in English, right? Like yo, wake up, picking up my phone. My friends is in my home. That would still be nice to say it in English, but in Indonesia, in Bahasa, that could be not nice. So
Yeah,
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 so
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
more challenging. And and when I first released the single in Bahasa, that's when I caught more attention from public. That's when my song is on medias and stuff like that. So and then I realized, oh, this Bahasa stuff is get to working because like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm speaking my language and it's more natural and real. So yeah, I'm more focused in that.
It comes back to kind of even the beginning question where it's like what or one of the earlier things we're talking about in terms of the younger generation, or your question about is it authentic or is it real? Like I remember I interviewed MC Torch, which he is considered. He's given credit for being the first MC to freestyle in German.
Yeah,
This is like during the 1980s, right?
yeah,
Uh, and he said the way it happened was they would have shows really, he said, really bad shows. It's like they're like they didn't have the skills or the technique, and he would rap his songs in English. And he said his broken English, so couldn't even speak English well enough, right? And that in between the songs he would speak in German, and people would like kind of sit up in their seats and like become more interested. And then he was a charismatic dude. He was a funny guy. So then he would just start like riffing off in German, and eventually that becomes little like rhymes, and that becomes rapping in German,
Yeah.
right? And he said he realized people understood me, they felt me more.
Yes.
So that's when it's authentic. That's not to say that someone from Indonesia can't rap in English.
Yep.
Sure. But it's going to take a lot more work because, like, what language do you know best?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Which language do you have the best ability to communicate yourself? Use that language because you're going to be a better MC. You're going to have more skill, more to pull off of, right?
And the case could be different if you're an Indonesian that grew up in United States. That could be different. But if you're an Indonesian that grew up in Jakarta like me, to do it in bahasa and my bahasa slang sehari-hari, that's the way to go.
Can you tell me a little bit about like the Indonesian landscape? You know, I mean, so someone like Rich Brian, right, is has reached some crossover success. Some people may have said it was kind of a joke initially, but we know that he like he releases music that people listen to, right, and it's good. I know Psycho G, right, who is like the OG, one of the OGs in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So, in your perspective, where do you think the Indonesian rap scene is? And not compared to the United States, but just as a scene itself and an industry itself. Is it strong? Is it positive? Is it authentic?
Okay, like the scene itself, I guess it's really based on your environment. It's really based on what's around you. So I met Rich Brian once. It was way back, uh, like like a few months after he signed to 88 Rising, I guess. I got to see him, and he was really a kid that grew up with English. Like there's international school in Indonesia. Some kids got to go there, and they're really used to speak English, maybe, or some families that use English in their household. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Rich Brian is that type of kid. So like when he raps in English, it's very genuine, and you can feel it that he speaks really well. But the scene itself is very. There are like so many. What do I say? So many areas, so many. I'm not saying rooms, but it's like some some people is really underground, and some people is like very. They have international mindset. They want to get across the United States or somewhere else they could work, and some is really um about about trying to be popular on their own context.
Yeah, man.
So the scene is like that. Like we have a lot of we obviously have a lot of talents, a lot of skills, and they're looking for like different areas to grow on.
Yeah. Man, it's not that different than it is in New York. I think when it comes down to it, we have to be very precise with what we talk about when we talk about hip hop. If we're talking about the hip hop music industry, that's pretty consistent regardless of what country you go to, right? There is a major music company who's deciding what records get played and they push certain messages. Every country has that, right? If you're talking about hip hop, that's a local thing. How do people in South Jakarta do hip hop? Like South Jakarta style, right?
Right.
Aceh style. Yo, that's an example right there, right? I was blessed to build with the NBC crew out in Aceh and the Aceh beatbox community. And in March of 2018, I was able to fly out there for an event, right? Here I am coming from New York. And that would be one thing where it's like, how is there hip hop in a place that's conservative like Aceh, right?
Conservative.
And I go there and it's amazing. how skilled the b-boys, the breakers are, and how skilled the beatboxers are, and how people just are in it for the culture, right?
Right.
We're in a bar that's, I mean, not even a bar, we're in a cafe that's packed. There's no drinking, right? And everyone's just there for the culture. That's Ache style. That's authentic and that's real. So, yeah, I don't think even though New York may be a city of 10 million people and our buildings are all up,
Yep.
it's still someone on the stoop with their homies beatboxing and freestyling, right? And they're the best one in the world as far as they're concerned, right?
Right. That's the wonderful side of hip hop. That's the
So, Laze, I think to push this forward a little bit, we should talk a little bit about the workshop series coming up.
yes. You gotta tell them what we're gonna do.
Yeah, so we are doing this Digital I Learn at America Rap Your Rhythm multi-session workshop series where we are going to work with a group of young Indonesian artists to help them what? Write a song, write a verse.
Yeah, to have them write a song, write a verse, grow maybe to learn to kill time.
Well, I think part of it is, let's get back to why we're doing this virtually, quarantine. I think At America wants to give young artists just the opportunity to express themselves about what's going on right now in the year 2020, in the year of the virus. So Laze and I are going to be spending some time talking about songwriting, talking about the craft of emceeing, on how to improve your skills. And the goal is for those who participate in the workshop series to create a song of their own, or we're hoping to be able to collaborate with someone else who's in the group. Right? Is there anything you want to add, Liz?
Like maybe I should re-say it in bahasa Indonesia.
Yeah.
Ya, pokoknya kita Laze and Farbeon, kita mau bikin workshop bareng. So if you guys want to join, please join, and you can check out the date, October 7, 14, 21, 28. Make sure you have time to do it, and we're gonna have fun and we're gonna learn together, of course.
Yes. So you'll see the workshop will be in English. A certificate will be provided for people who attend all sessions, and it's a limited group. We're not opening this up because we want, we want people who not necessarily all have skill, but
It's really
if you have, if you have a little more skill and you want to talk about what's going on right now, this could be a great opportunity for you, and we can create something amazing. So,
yes, let's do it.
So the goal is going to be to create a song about what's going on or what is happening right now, our experience. And Laze and I have created a song. We've spent the last couple of weeks collaborating on a song. Do we want to share that?
Yes, let's share that right now.
All right. So this is an unreleased joint. I think it's going to be released this week, next week. Still trying to finalize some details. But can we play that track?
Yes, let's play it now.
All right, okay. Which is produced by the homie The Frenetic. Is sick producer here based in Brooklyn, featuring myself and Laze.
Let's hear it.
I believe that is on the At America side. Hey, Laze, what's up, brother?
Hey, Farbeon, how you doing there?
Man, as good as to be expected. Things have been a little rough here in NYC, but I guess they've been rough everywhere. Sickness, quarantine. How are you doing, man? How's Jakarta?
Yeah, I'm doing good, but same thing here. Business shutting down. They're locking the city down.
Yeah, man, it's a struggle. But that's why we work to make things better. And they will get better.
Yeah, we get through it.
We We got the call to return back home, cutting short a Bolivian hip-hop experience, fear and panic across the planet. From a virus unknown, deadly and mysterious, when my plane touched down, felt a sense of relief. To return to the city that rarely ever sleeps, the world put on pause, everything shut down, sirens wake me from my sleep, lay in bed as I weep. So we focus on the sweet, focus on the positive, transformative. Hey, Laze, what's up, brother?
Hey, Farbeon, how you doing there?
Man, as good as to be expected. Things have been a little rough here in NYC, but I guess they've been rough everywhere. Sickness, quarantine. How are you doing, man? How's Jakarta?
Yeah, I'm doing good, but same thing here. Business shutting down. They're locking the city down.
Yeah, man, it's a struggle. But that's why we work to make things better. And they will get better.
Yeah, we get through it.
We got the call to return back home, cutting short a Bolivian hip-hop experience, fear and panic across the planet. From a virus unknown, deadly and mysterious, when my plane touched down, felt a sense of relief. To return to the city that rarely ever sleeps, the world put on pause, everything shut down, sirens wake me from my sleep, lay in bed as I weep. So we focus on the sweet, focus on the positive, transformative, provocative, socially distant, monotonous. Focus on helping those who are worse off than we. Focus on justice as people march in the streets. 2020 has brought into focus the cruelty, atrocious, a system that's broken, prognosis explosive. To fix it, the motive, no time to be hopeless. In 2020, the future, the caption, the call to compassion, cause the mantra I say, on the other side of this, a world transformed, we gonna be alright, we gonna be okay. We gonna be alright, we gonna be okay.
Berharap nanti dunia kembali.
We gonna be okay, we gonna be alright.
Seperti semua yang kita kenali.
We gonna be alright, we gonna be okay.
Berharap nanti dunia kembali.
We gonna be okay, we gonna be alright.
Seperti semua yang kita kenali. Terdiam dalam rumah, kaos paling kumal. Mencoba nyaman agar semua tak percuma. Yang berjuang di rumah sakit atau wisma atlet. Coba menahan angka agar tak terus naik. Banyak usaha pilot, ini pil yang pahit. Tapi harus kita telan seperti tablet. Coba kulihat lebih dalam seperti ronsen. Demi kampanye masih mau buat konser. Geser jadwal, geser dudukmu. Mungkin aku adalah bahaya untukmu. Jangan mengeluh bila tak lagi ku peluk. Atau kau demam dan aku tak bisa menjenguk. Jadi angkat telepon dan mulai bercakap. Bukan berarti aku enggan bertatap muka. Suka duka yang kian kau bagi. Tunggu ni berlalu, nanti kita jumpa lagi.
We gonna be alright, we gonna be okay.
Berharap nanti dunia kembali.
We gonna be okay, we gonna be alright.
Seperti semua yang kita kenali.
We gonna be alright, we gonna be okay.
Berharap nanti dunia kembali.
We gonna be okay, we gonna be alright.
Seperti semua yang kita kenali.
Yes, from Brooklyn to Jakarta and back again. Living in the year 2020. Check up on your fam, y'all. Cause together, we can get through this. Say what, say word.
Yep. Farbeon, I think you have to unmute yourself first.
What I was saying is just like, yo, man, you're right. And I think if hip hop has taught us one thing in being global is that we all have the same experience. So the workshop series is going to be a good opportunity for young artists to come and connect, talk about what's going on, and learn how to, well, as I like to say, I don't really teach a lot sometimes. Sometimes I just facilitate. The young artists who join us in this workshop series probably already know how to do a little writing. So we're just going to help level them up, right?
Yeah. And sometimes I even learn from the participants, like a lot more.
We're going to talk about that too, man. That's the best way of teaching, Laze, is you're like, it's the pedagogy is sometimes the participants are the experts and they're the ones leading and we follow. You know, all we do is kind of direct. So, so I think we now go to Q&A.
Yes. Do you guys have any
Yes.
questions on maybe how I survive with my broken English or anything?
Well, I believe Jasmine is coming back.
I think they have the question here. They have 3 questions.
Oh, that's right. On the chat. All right.
The first question
So, yeah, hit it out. So what's the first question?
it's from Indira Prana. Question is,
Mira, what up?
yeah. The question is, with the pandemic looking like it might take a while for things to resolve, how can aspiring artists survive and grow? Social media is saturated with everyone trying to reach an audience. Likes and shares are nice and all, but we still need to eat. So any suggestions? All right,
Ooh.
from Farbeon, this is tough questions. Do you have an answer?
Mm. Do you have an answer for this, Laze?
Right, I can see that artists are trying to eat, of course. Musicians are trying to survive, so they even post more on social medias in hope that people pay more attention to them, or maybe brands, so they can like, do something and make some cash. like, so like I think there is the way for aspiring artists to keep on going is to keep making more music, keep making more art, or if you have a side hustle, if you have a side business, that will be a good idea to have. Like maybe you can sell some food, coffee, juice, who knows? Because like people is do what they gotta do to survive. Sometimes when even it's like drifted away from the art itself, it's okay, because when your belly is full, when your tummy is full, and you sleep well, your art will be nice as well. That's what I think.
Yeah, man. Yo, that's just difficult times for artists, for people who work in creative industries. I think we're going to be one of the last industries that are let to come back once we're past this pandemic.
Yep.
So it's really hard. I agree that social media landscape is oversaturated with artists putting stuff out.
Yep.
I think sometimes we have to ask why we create art, and I think that's a little what you're talking about, Laze. I don't create art to make money. Maybe, and that's back to why I say I've made a lot of decisions not to sell 100,000 records. I make art for message sake, for pushing the culture forward, for expression. So, in terms of how aspiring artists can survive, so the question is how aspiring artists can survive and grow. Sometimes those are different things, right? Like, to grow is to keep like learning, keep creating, and keep getting better. To survive, to Laze's point, is you have to diversify your revenue, right? I always say as an artist, a concrete example is, I have MP3s, I have CDs, I have vinyl, right? There's some places in the world where people will pay $40 for 2 pieces of vinyl, but they won't pay $5 for a CD. Okay. So you find a way to diversify. What that means now is it's not just a side hustle. It's got to be a passion too. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, I think the goal is to like have these side hustles, but hopefully they feed you in other ways creatively. Like they feed your soul in other ways. Yeah. And I always say this too. If I know the 100 people who will, like, I know 100 people and I know who they are. I have their email, I have their phone number, and I know that they'll give me $10 whenever I put out an album. That's $1,000 right there. I just need to know who those 100 people are and how to reach and how to get to them, right? You turn that into 500, you turn that into 1,000. That's not a big number, but what you are talking about is an authentic connection with your audience so that they don't even care about what's on social media. they know that you're about to release something and they want to be down with that. So I think it's about building stronger connections with your audience too.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a very good question. Like likes and shares are nice, but we still need to eat. Yeah, some people eat off likes and shares.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that's another point. And yeah, that's a very good answer from Farbion. It's very wise. But yeah, we're having a hard time.
Yeah, man.
Should we move on to the next questions, or
Yeah, man. Let's move on to the next question. What do we got?
it's from Lexi Dahan. Farbion, how's the BLM movement affect the hip hop scene in the States?
Black Lives Matter, man. That
Yeah,
is
first class.
first and foremost. It's been tough here in the United States with the pandemic. And then we had a series of lynchings, pretty much, where African Americans were killed by police officers. And it's not like it was these events that have caused things to kind of blow up. We're talking about hundreds of years. You know, this country was built on the backs of the enslaved, right? We're not saying slaves because they were not slaves. They were people who were enslaved, right? So the Black Lives Matter movement, which grew out of or shortly after the killing of Trayvon Martin, has taken to the streets, particularly during this time. Because I think what it is the pandemic has shown how much of what we thought. What's the best way to put this? It's put everyone in a position of like struggle, you know, particularly if you come from communities of color, you know, black communities, Latino communities that had already been feeling like they're missing out on the American dream, they're discriminated against. You throw in the pandemic, it was bound to be a powder keg. But these aren't riots; they are uprisings, right? They are people who are fed up with the system and are fighting for change. So, how has it impacted hip hop? I would say that it's the Black Lives Matter movement before there was a Black Lives Matter movement was already embedded in hip hop, right? Because it was young black people talking about their black lives, using the culture to like express themselves about the stuff they were going through. Um, I think more so now today, you know, we're talking about I always have to separate the pandemic from, you know, like pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, you know. And when we talk about the pandemic, we're talking about 6 months of the pandemic. And then, you know, now these continual movement for social justice. Hip hop is at the forefront of that. You know, there are young artists in hip hop who are using their voice right now to advocate for change, to advocate for, I don't want to say to be the voice of the voiceless because there are no voiceless people. They are just expressing what is going on in the streets. I don't know if that answers the question.
Like, yeah, you know, I've been listening to a lot of hip hop, a lot of music, and the new school rappers and the '90s rappers, or from all kind of era. Like now this topic is like something that they really talk about in the song, and I think it's nice because, like Farbion said, it's an uprising, it's a fight. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I mean, it also depends. Once again, we get back to industry and, you know, independent or, you know, there's lots of artists, you know, You got to hear the Lockdown track by Anderson Paak
Yes.
if you haven't. In fact, that song was kind of an inspiration for the song that we worked on, at least in terms of the beat. Corday is another MC out there who is really using his voice right now to advocate for change. In fact, was arrested in Minnesota shortly after George Floyd's death here in the United States. So I think it's about young artists. You know, you're either have the spirit to put your life on the line for what's right, or you're busy chasing those likes, right? And chasing, the shares. But I think right now times are too serious for people to be doing anything other than, fighting for Black lives. Things are going to be very. I'm still dealing. It's interesting to be in the United States right now because we're still dealing with the trauma of, like, centuries of trauma, in terms of how people of color have been treated. Now you have the pandemic trauma, and then the most recent killings of African Americans, and now we have our election coming up in the next, couple of months. It's going to be a wild ride, and it's like, what a time to be alive in the United States.
All right. Shall we move on to the next questions?
Yeah, man.
All right. From Machan Wigit, aka Tora, he asked, there are a lot of discussion about cultural appropriation when it comes to hip hop, especially as hip hop starts to assimilate to the culture of new land they land and grow at, like London grime, for example. How far can the adaptation go without appropriating the culture, and how far can we stray from the original culture until it becomes not hip hop anymore? Like, how do you call it hip hop or not hip hop?
Yeah. Well, that question itself is where I can get very philosophical. It's like, who am I to say something isn't hip hop, right? In some respects, I'm a 40-plus-year-old man with 2 degrees, a homeowner, a car owner. I'm further removed from the streets in that authentic sense. So if someone says they're doing hip hop, in some respect, in some sense, I respect that, right? But I understand the question in terms of cultural appropriation. I think the line right now is, is it about showing appreciating the culture, or is it about using it to get something for yourself, right? I have to look at it also on the global level. Like in the United States, I can see people appropriating hip hop culture. And we're not just talking about people who are rapping, we're talking about people using hairstyles, using clothing styles to be cool, right? To push forward a product. I would say that feels inauthentic, and you can tell when it feels inauthentic. On the global tip, to say that someone, there is a B-boy or B-girl or like a DJ with his 2 records in every city, in every country across the world, right? And when they are in the midst of expressing themselves through hip-hop, they feel so real and authentic. That is something that should be celebrated and valued. And at times, their expression will be inauthentic because they're not being truly themselves. They're trying to be something else. The moment that they can use the craft and the culture to express who they are truly, talk about their experiences, then it stops being appropriation and starts being kind of this authentic experience. Laze, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm with all of you.
Oh, I missed you. What do you think? What's your take on the appropriation question, considering that, like,
it's like it's very tough for me to measure since to me, like I'm adapting hip hop to my culture. So like I don't think I have the right to talk about what is cultural appropriation and what is not. But you know, as far as I go, I'm just trying to find a way to be as authentic as possible. If even if possible, probably finding our own signature sounds or you know signature style of doing rap. I don't think like for example we have London grime in London. I don't think that's a wrong idea. This is how you adapting culture from outside of your country to yours and build it to something new, which is fresh to me.
I mean, it's remix. It's remix culture,
It's
right?
remix culture.
The foundation of hip hop is remix. So I think that's a good example. I was in Eritrea last summer doing a workshop in a place that it's like the second hardest visa to get outside of North Korea, right?
Wow.
And they were expressing themselves through hip hop, and there's a certain rhythm within their culture that finds its way into the music, right? So to your idea of adapting, it's like there's going to be certain language aspects, musical aspects. When you can bring those into the culture, then it becomes real, becomes authentic. And I liked your answer where, you know, you're not really thinking about cultural appropriation because you're adapting. Um,
Right.
but you've also had to learn about where it came from. I
Or
would say that's the missing component, the education component, where if you're really about this craft and culture and you want to adapt it and make it your own, that's great. But you need to know where it comes from. You need to do the knowledge and respect the pioneers and respect the
of course,
foundation of the culture.
sure. Of course, that's something that you can't skip on.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
So we got another question.
yes, from Putra Aditya. Far beyond, what would you say to those people who wants to use their art to voice about the civil injustice happening in the country, but then have to deal with authorities which somewhat also control the industry?
Oh man. Thanks for the question, brother. That's a tough one. Um, it's interesting doing this work outside of the United States. Often we go into places and they look at us like I was talking to a homie of mine who does a lot of this work, and they look at us like, well, we're coming from the United States, so we know all about freedom and we know all about expression and being able to. And it's like, of course, in some respects, but you know, we look at what's happening right now in this country, and like, you know, there are always ramifications for telling it like it is, for speaking truth to power. Um, in a country like here, where you have freedom of speech, you're able to get away with more. But in other places where a country may be, or let's say it may not be as open a society, we don't even necessarily have to talk about government, just more conservative. The challenge is, how can you get your message out and have it be more acceptable or palpable to the community? Um, you know, if we're talking about making things better, I always feel if you approach the song by like, here are the problems and here are the solutions, how can that be deemed bad? Um, at the same point, having done this work in places where you can't speak out, I would never encourage a young person as a teacher to put it all out there, right? I actually am very clear at times where it's like, you know, I don't want to encourage you to do something that's going to jeopardize yourself, jeopardize your family, jeopardize the ones you love. So I often at times I'm like, you may have to keep that in yourself and go to the craft. We're talking about simile. We're talking about metaphor.
Wordplay.
right? We're talking about wordplay. We're talking about poetry. So in the poetry, you can express these messages in like hidden ways,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like, and that's what's
Sneak
great
dissing.
about hip hop, huh? What were you saying, Lace?
Sneak dissing.
Well, yeah, and it's like that's the craft of it, So that's a tough one, you know.
Yeah,
What do you think, Lace?
the way I think is like you can do it in a very sneaky way, and there's always a middle ground between what is offensive and what is beautiful. So you have to find that middle ground, and you know that everything is sensitive these days. So you need to measure like what kind of people that around you or what kind of country you live in. So maybe you can find a sweet spot for you to
Yeah.
drop the bomb or to drop the diss, to drop the critic or anything else. You know.
Yeah, man. In Eritrea, in fact, there were rumors that we were, you're being followed, and it's like they wiretapped your rooms. It's like, no, they didn't, but there are ramifications for actions, right? The government has just more control over society, so everyone's listening all the time. Like everyone's like, if something's out of the ordinary, everyone knows. Um, I found that those young people who wanted to change the society were very confident and very vocal, but they also knew what they could get away with and what they couldn't get away with.
Right.
Right? It's about not being reckless, being strategic, right? And being about your craft, doing it as you say in the sneaky way. So let's go on to the next question. It's from Sylvia.
Yes. Hello there.
That's the homie right there, man. Sylvia Lowe. I met her also. Yes Academy, 2015. Amazing dancer and educator. And in 2015, she said that she would see me in Jakarta soon. And sure enough, a year later, we did Yes ASEAN in Jakarta, which was an amazing experience. So Sylvia asks, happy to see both of you here. I just checked on the website to join the workshop. You have to send in an audio track. So does it have to be fully English language, or is it allowed to send a mixed English Indonesian language? How about full Indonesian language for the rap demo? All right, good question. Do they have to send in a track? You do have to submit some type of work, whether it's a recorded track or maybe lyrics that you've already written.
Voice note.
Go ahead.
Or maybe some voice noting.
Yeah, or a voice note, just so we have a sense of what the skill is. And then in terms of language, as I've said, if you express yourself better in Bahasa Indonesia, then do that. Because it's going to be a more fruitful experience within the workshop. If you don't have a strong facility with English, don't send us your strongest work, right? The people who will be looking at the application speak Bahasa. And I would also say that if you... I forgot. A little early in the morning. My mind just sort of like fell asleep and then woke back up again.
Yeah, breakfast.
Oh, and if you want to express yourself in English, so go ahead, right? If you want to do like kind of go back and forth, I'm fine with it.
All right. Thank you for the questions. Sylvia, everybody, Putra Aditya, Macan Wigit, Lexi Dahan, Indira Prana. Farbeon, I guess that's all the questions we have today.
Okay.
So what do we do next?
I think that's it. If there are no more questions,
are you going to show us some video of you performing?
That's right. I have the video perform. Why don't we do that? Why don't we finish up with the performance video, and then you can finish up with a freestyle, and that'll be the show.
Yes, let's do some freestyle.
All right.
All right.
So here's a new song I'm working on. It's a performance video. It is about social justice, and it's entitled Movement. Lexi, hopefully you have that. You're queuing that up. It's about movement and just some background on the song. There, I was back in El Paso, Texas, where I'm originally from. I was helping my dad at his church. He's a deacon in the church, and they had immigrants who had just come up from Central America, and they were staying in the church, getting clothing, food, and the church was helping them travel to their next destination. And I saw this woman who had 2 kids. All 3 of them were sunburned, like you can tell that they'd been in the sun nonstop, and they had walked 1,200 miles, which I don't know how many kilometers is, but it is basically walking across an entire country to get to the United States. And I was just struck by the idea of movement, that people will move to and improve their lives, and then that the need for a social movement, the need for people to like move. So can we share that track, please?
Imagine what it'd take to leave it all behind. Leave what you call home, let go of all belongings. Imagine what it'd take to walk 1,200 miles, one child at your waist, at your side, leave the other, feel the hunger. Feel the sunburn, freedom, hunger. Determined for a better life, better future, feed the hunger, feel the hunger. Lack of slumber, freedom plundered. What's the number, what's the cause? They flee today, flee tomorrow, fear the thunder. Slums and ghettos part the ocean, follow Pharaoh on the march, fleeing terror, violence and extortion. Exploitation and corruption, a policy of pain, a strategy calculated. Government orchestrated, simulated, motivated, hate aggravated, animated, activated. Children separated from their parents. The cruelty apparent, we should all be embarrassed. Movement, all across the land, travel miles over mountains with family and dignity. Movement, migrants on the move in search of safety, opportunity, no human is illegal. Movement, this vibe's ancient practice, discipline and patience, resolve-driven agency. Movement, throw your fists in the air for the movement. Objects will move if reactive force is triggered. Written in our DNA, defined by laws of physics. Test the limits, a lesson in global civics. Risen spirits pivot revolution in these lyrics. World of sickness that we live in. If not, rich be left the victim. A cult of cruelty and death, beware the fallacy, the prophecy. Our militias in the streets fight for failed economic policies. The atrocity, commodity at the behest of all monopolies. Driven by the fear and all the animosity, idiocy. A perversion of the truth. Freedom's about the quality, not decisions made in quantity. Free people will not bear muzzles on their foreheads. Free people will not bear knees on their neck. Galvanizing, organizing. We galvanize and organize. Come on, movement. All across the land, travel miles over mountains with family and dignity. Movement. Migrants on the move in search of safety, opportunity. No human is illegal. Movement. This vibe's ancient practice, discipline and patience. Resolve-driven agency. Movement. 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 Movement, movement, get up, stand up. Movement, get up, stand up. Movement, get up, stand up. Movement, get up, stand 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 up.
So yeah, that's Farbeon.
Yeah, man.
He does everything by himself. He raps, he DJs, he scratchy, he does everything.
So you want to end with a freestyle, Laze?
So yeah, I suggest all the participants to go to the chat room and throw me any topics. I prefer in Bahasa, so you can just like type down any words and I'll rap about it. And Farbeon, if you want to try me, Yeah, you
But yeah, I can throw a word in English, but you can rap in Bahasa if you want.
All
You don't
right.
have to. You don't
All right,
have to
cool.
use the English word.
Let's do it. Can you guys hear the beat? All right. Yeah. Setiap hari aku tanya, apa aku mampu untuk bersinar terang seperti lampu. Tempe goreng kering itulah yang aku makan. Bila aku mulai rap, semua dimakamkan. For Laze PSBB aku di rumah, tapi banyak belajar jadi tak percuma. Farbeon, you my teacher, please drop some lyrics. I'm gonna spit it and you gonna hear it. Buat Amerika, Laze rap flow sepanas neraka. Pesawat kemana kita terbang, ke negara lain lalu kita buka gerbang. Siapa aku serang dan kita menyeberang. Musuh dalam selimut sudah jelas tidak imut, walau segede semut digigit tetap sakit. Mengadu domba kita berlomba-lomba. Ada tema lain yang mau dikasih. Monas di ujungnya ada emas. That's gold, it means something bold. Soekarno taruh situ terjadi penanda. Kota Jakarta bila punya banyak harta. Yeah, from the city point of view, it's the greatest tower. It's showing power. Laptop, TV, kulkas, elektronik. Aku datang seperti gempa tektonik. Semua panik. Lirikku magnetik. Semua tertarik seperti batu akik. Aku bersinar murah rai bandara di Bali. Sudah lama kita kembali. Ayam goreng, that's fried chicken. That's what I like. I don't make fried kitchen. Yeah, that's the food I like. That's the joint I might have for dinner. That's the breakfast for the winner. 6 a.m. in New York. Let's do it. I'ma shake some egg yolk for breakfast. I'ma shine like rappers' necklaces. Penne pasta itu yang ku jual selama bisnis. Hasilnya manis. Pasta tapi bukan imposter. Kau taruh nama Laze depan poster. Kemang itu posisiku berada, tapi ku sama sekali tidak mengada-ngada. Kopi tubruk diminum bila mengantuk. Jadi kalau bawa truk jangan sampai nubruk.
Hey.
So I did it a little bit. So Farbeon, you want to jump in?
Yo, man. Trying to. Yo, the beat's kind of really low, man. It's like.
Alright, I'll send it up a little.
Yo. Every single time I rap, beat drops out like that. But that's okay. No, it's not working, man.
How come it's not working?
It's noise cancellation. It's the setting that we'd have to change.
All right, that's nice enough for an outro.
Yeah, man. Yo, but the thing is, we're gonna work out so that we can freestyle. Those of you who join the workshop series, we're going to be doing this live. We're gonna be freestyling. We're gonna be writing lyrics. We'll be working on songs. So make sure you go to At America. Let me just put up this information once again. So you can find out more about the workshop. Go to atamerica.or.id. And I believe that's it, man.
That's it. I think that's enough for today. Let's call it a day.
So Laze, terima kasih, man. Thank you so much for being an amazing student, an amazing ambassador of the culture, and like now trying to teach young Indonesians the hip hop culture, man. Like, I'm so proud of the artist you've become and who you are as a person, man. It's a wonder to be able to work with you on this.
Thank you so much, Farbeon, because if it wasn't because of you, I wouldn't be teaching all these young Indonesian kids to rap. And of course, this is the opportunity I really, I feel honored about this. You're my teacher, and now we're going to teach together.
Yeah, man.
That's another thing. That's another level of doing this, and I hope it's going to be fun. And thank you for finding time between your very tight schedule. You can be anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here, so I'm grateful for that.
Well, terima kasih.
Terima kasih. And to all the participants for watching this whole conversation, I hope if you're interested, you can go to the website straight up, and see you next time.
Yeah, sampai jumpa.
Sampai jumpa. Yeah,
sampai
sampai
jumpa.
jumpa. And good morning, Farbeon.
All right. Thank you so much for Laze and Farbeon for your time. I hope you all enjoyed today's session. And so I would like to remind you guys, earlier in the event, I asked you guys a question. What was the first hip hop track ever to win an Academy Award for Best Original Song? And the answer is C, Lose Yourself. And we have a winner from Facebook, so shout out to Bondan Suratno for answering correctly. Congratulations. And for those of you who would like to join our quiz next time, you can stay tuned from the very beginning of the event because that's when we share our question. So for those of you who are wondering how can you develop an awesome idea at an awesome place like AdAmerica, it's really easy. You can just go to our website at www.adamerica.org.id, select Creative Program, and go to Collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed, and your awesome event might be featured here soon. While you guys are on our website, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter so you guys get updates from us once a week sent straight to your inbox. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media for fun content, event updates, and many more. I hope you all have a great evening and see you at the next AdAmerica TV event. Bye-bye, everybody.